Welcome to Grade 11 Information Technology, and here in term 2 for theory we're going to do data information management, and we're going to start from page 121 in the textbook. We have to know exactly what data information is so that we can manage that. So let's have a look and see what data is. It is our facts and statistics collected for reference or analysis. And once we process that, we can get information. And that information must then be managed within a database. So a database is a collection of data, and it's always stored on a computer, so it can be manipulated making use of a computer system. For this lesson, we're going to introduce you to Microsoft Access. And Access is an information management tool to help to store that information and obviously to manipulate that as well. There are 4 main objects within Access that we're going to look at. We're only going to look at in detail at a table. Query forms and reports are for Access itself, but for us as programmers we have to have a table to store the data so that we can manipulate that using code. From here, a table, which I just said is the main component that we're going to work with, consists of fields. Those fields have to have specific field names. Those field names must be meaningful and preferably no spaces, because we know that a space is nothing, but in coding it is a specific value. And if you cannot see it, you can really paint yourself into a corner there. The field must also have a specific data type. By now we are familiar with specific data types, and we will see in Access that there are about a dozen or so data types, which when we design these fields we have to use the relevant data type. Otherwise we cannot manipulate the data successfully. And of course that data must have specific characteristics, and therefore that can be changed within the properties of the fields. And once we have a collection of fields and it's been populated, then we have a specific record, and we will see then in Delphi how to manipulate records within the table of the database. So what we're going to do now, we're going to open up Access and we're going to see how to create a database. We're going to name it in a specific location, and we're going to then go through the steps as I've just mentioned here before. So what we're going to do, we're going to open up Microsoft Access, and we have to have Access obviously in the Microsoft suite. Generally Access is not included, but we have to make sure that we have that. Doesn't really matter which version, we can always work around that. And it's from here in Microsoft Access that we're going to start and create a blank database. When we double click that, it's going to now prompt us for the file name, and it's going to then, it's also here that we can browse and find the location where we would like to keep this particular table, or this particular database should I say. So let's call this test for now, and remember that when we do give names it must be relevant of what it can contain. It just makes more sense. When we click on create, this is what's going to happen. It is in here in Access that is going to provide us an area or various areas. The area down here is where we're going to have the objects of this particular Access database. You'll note that at this stage it didn't prompt us for a name whatsoever. It gave us a default name of table 1. Now table names, as I've explained, must be relevant. Otherwise table 1 doesn't really make sense to us. There are 2 views that we can have a look at. Currently it's in datasheet view. We're going to click and go to the design view. Once we do that, you'll note that it's at this stage that it's going to prompt us for a table name. The table name, once again, as I've instructed in the PowerPoint presentation earlier, must be relevant of what it's going to contain. And I said, stay away from spaces. At this stage, it's already selected, and we are going to create a small little table with contact details. So we will call this contacts, and I'm going to click on OK. Please note what happened now. The name now has been added in the tables in this area where the access objects are being shown. And then to our left or the right, as you look at it, we're going to see that from here it's now going to prompt us to design or add field names, data types, descriptions, and down here is an area called field properties. By default, it's going to kick off with ID, and it's going to kick off with, you'll see there's a tiny little key there that is referred to as a primary key, and it by default will give us the data type as auto number. Now, nothing wrong with that. Just briefly while we're here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about a dozen of data types that's available to us. And they all have various or different properties, and as I've explained, depending on what data you're going to use. Now, ID means that it's going to give this particular field a specific number, and the number is going to be auto number. That means Access will determine the value or the number in here. Not always sufficient, but this is what Access is going to offer us. So let's stick with this one, and we say, okay, right, we're going to have that. We're now going to add the next one, and it's in here that I'm going to say first name. Please note I didn't add any spaces, and then I use my tab key or the mouse to go to that. For the fact that it recognizes that we're now going to work with text, it offers us a short text as data type. Please note down below that the field size, that means the number of characters by default, will be 255. So you must decide in your planning of this field how many characters are you going to add in here generally. 255 is a lot. So for a surname, I would say perhaps recommend 30. Right, so I've done my first name or the field name, I've given it a name, the data type short text. Description is optional. Description is optional. I will show you briefly how it works maybe with the next field name. Right, and I've determined the field size. I'm now going to click to go to the next, and let's call this surname. As I tap to the next one, it recognizes that this is possible short text. I'm just going to show you once again what is available here. The difference between short and long text is only 255. Long text will offer us like a comment or field where we can really go. Can you see it doesn't even offer us the number of fields. It gives us the opportunity to really go for a field like comments or instructions. Short text 255. This is only a surname. I'm going to go 30 as well. This planning is crucial as and when we design the table, because we can always make it bigger once we edit, but we cannot make it smaller once it contains data. Remember, then you will truncate some of that data automatically. As with any programming, as with anything, we have to plan what we're going to do. All right, I'm just going to put in another field, and then we're going to see how it works. Let's say we call this cell phone, the cell phone number, and now we're going to go to there, and which data type would you think is relevant here? No, it's not number, because number we will only use once we start calculating this field. And we're not going to calculate the cell phone number. So we're going to go short text. And what is the length for a cell phone number generally? It's about 10 characters. So we'll put in 10 characters there. Okay, so it's 10 characters there. And let's keep this for now. This is short and sweet. It is at this stage that I'm now going to, you'll note that there's no file or save facility there. So the moment if I'm clicking on save, I've now saved my first table. But remember, we're busy with the structure. What is it that we've done? We've created the field names. With every field name, we created the data type. From data type, we went and looked at the field properties. So this is the characteristics of that particular field that we changed. And you can see all these fields are so unique that we had to go and change the field sizes. We're not going to really go into the bottom of this because ultimately, as I've explained, we would like to use Access as the database tool in conjunction with Delphi. I'm now going to switch to the datasheet view. And in the datasheet view, I can now see the structure of what I've just created. In this particular instance, it contains no records whatsoever, but that little star indicates that this is the empty record ready to populate the records. Because this is a record, while these are all individual fields. So what we're going to do, we're now going to type in the first name. And how do I move to the next field? I'm going to just use the tab key, or I could have used the mouse. Please note that little pointer there has now changed to a little pen because I'm editing this particular record. Also, the ID number has changed to num automatically. Just to remind you, we use this as an auto number. Right, surname. And off to the next one. Remember we said this is not a field that we're going to calculate. 072, there we go. And that is then the cell phone number for this particular field. At this stage, although we've completed all the fields, it's still in editing mode, and therefore the field is not permanent yet. It's only once we go to the next record that I can now see that this is record 1 so far, and I'm about to do record 2. I'm just going to do another record. There is this person's cell phone number. Can you see automatically the ID number was completed for us? This is not a record yet. Please note that little pointer, that little pin is still there. That means I'm in the process of creating this. And it's only once I enter that that particular record has now been saved. When I do close this particular database, it's not going to prompt me for anything to save because what we've done here, we were working on the actual database itself. We only save once we change the characteristics or the properties or when we change structure. For now, that is what we're going to do. I would quickly like to go and have a look at what we've just done. So in design view, we went to the table and we've given it specific name. We went then to the primary key, and although we said it's highly recommended, we're not going to use it for now. In the next lesson, I'll explain what the primary key is. We've added we named the fields, and I encourage you not to use any spaces. We chose relevant data types. The description I said was optional, and obviously the properties we've changed. Remember the field sizes we've changed from 255 to 30. I would like you to go and do the following activities. I would like you to, from the textbook, read page 121 to 126, and there are a couple of activities to be done, 127 to 131. The relevant files will also be added to your Google Classroom. Until we see next time.